Remember the rhyme, 30 days has September, and this is June 30th, the last day, 2010 of June. Wow, Mike Hildebrand, how are you?
Great, great.
Good to see you. Michael in charge of marketing and public relations and whatever. If they got a broom, they put it in his hand when he walks down the hallway.
It's a cruel world, Gordy, but you got to do what you got to do.
We're at CVPH in a special hallway for a very special reason today, Mike.
We have been very, very tickled, actually, with what celebrating 100 years of caring brought about. As you know, on June 22nd of 1910, the first hospital patient was admitted at Champlain Valley Hospital. First time this ever occurred in Plattsburgh. And in doing the celebration of 100 years, we put together a lot of plaques that had, actually we refer to them as orphan plaques. They had been up in the old Champlain Valley Hospital or the Physicians Hospital, and because of expansion or what have you, they ended up going into our archives. We also took a number of our old historical photos, and we've installed them permanently in the hallway that is right off the main lobby that connects the main lobby of the hospital to the medical office buildings. And it took what had been a very bland, blah, nothing kind of hallway and turned it into something that is not only a lot of fun, but made it certainly look like it's part of the hospital, and it makes it interesting if you've got a little time on your hands to walk through and look at all these pictures, look at all these plaques, kind of I wonder if that person is related to so-and-so that I know today. So it's been a very positive thing for us.
It's been a lot of fun for us to trace the history of Physicians Hospital and the original Physicians Hospital, but I dare say there are viewers watching this program who've watched it many times before who don't know that there is a 100-year history for Champlain Valley Hospital across town, and then when the two facilities merged and became this wonderful medical center that we see here today.
Well, I mean, actually, it began in 1903, and that's when the Grey Nuns of Ontario came to Plattsburgh, met with the community leaders, if you will, and said, hey, a hospital would be a great thing to do. It took them 7 years to actually create that, which was kind of amazing when you think about it. Then in 1911, Physicians Hospital opened. In 1926, Physicians Hospital moved to Beekman Street, where it's located today. And then in 1967, the two hospitals agreed to merge. And on May 15th of 1972, they actually physically merged right here on Beekman Street.
And we know many people who were involved in that process, and the ambulances back and forth. And,
oh, yeah.
It's so much fun to hear that story and hear how smoothly that went that day. It could have been far different from that, but here we are now, and I can't help but marvel every time I drive around this place, especially when I bring friends. We had a niece of ours who graduated from Plattsburgh State way back in the 1960s, who came back up for a couple of weeks with a friend of hers, and we drive around the campus, and they are absolutely blown away, to coin a phrase, when they see this place.
Well, I mean, the expansion has been tremendous, and particularly over the last 20 years. I mean, in the last 20 years, we added the Cancer Center, we added MRI. In '97, we opened the new emergency department, which was an expansion. And in '97, we also acquired and opened the Health Plaza across from Hannaford's. The hallway that we're in now was part of our 2003 construction that added the 14-bed intensive care unit, which of course was all preliminary to, of course, adding open heart surgery and angioplasty. And then in 2008, we opened the new surgery department. It's and got a wonderful front entrance. So, I mean, the growth, the development has been phenomenal.
It's been really great, and fortunately, I've been able to follow it from the very beginning, having been in the radio business here for a long time, and with Calvin for quite a long time. it's hard for me to believe that our wonderful Fitzpatrick Oncology Cancer Center has been here for 20 years.
Gordy, amazingly enough, I got a call from Dr. Vaccaro just last week. And in approximately a month, they will have had, on the radiation therapy side only, their 10,000th patient.
That's incredible.
He called to give me a heads up to say that we just logged in patient number 9,979.
It's getting there. Isn't that amazing?
It's truly, I mean, I was stunned. When I said, you mean total patients in the cancer center? He said, no, this is just patients who have received radiation therapy.
So this medical center is on the map. It pleases Calvin and I to come up here because there are so many updates and to chronicle this right from the very beginning. I was trying to remember how many times I've talked to you on a microphone since the day you walked in the door, and it's dozens and dozens.
Sure.
Isn't it great?
Oh, it is.
To be a part of the whole thing.
It is. I mean, the growth, there are services being provided today and being provided extremely well that people only dreamed about. Never thought that it would happen here. The growth has been phenomenal with the employment. You know, we work hard at our physician recruitment. We have approximately 200 members of the medical staff now, and we're adding more and aggressively trying to bring more physicians in. I mean, we're doing things like working with the Adirondack Region Medical Home Pilot, which the whole world is looking at from a standpoint of, is this the best way to go for primary care? And CVPH is playing a leading role in trying to make that all work. You know, there's never a dull moment here.
I think our viewers will find this a most interesting program. Next, we're going to talk with our good friend Stevens Mundy, the president of this organization, who's been here. He's a short timer compared to you. He's been here only a short time, but he is a very quick study, a brilliant guy, and he's melded himself, he and his wife, with this community tremendously.
Oh, Stevens has done a wonderful job here. I believe he's been here now a little over 8 years, and he's truly made an impact. And you're absolutely right. He and his wife have been strong forces in the community, and I think Stevens has also done a wonderful job working with the medical staff.
Oh, there's no question about it. We like the way things work here at CVPH Medical Center, so let's talk with him. What do you say?
Great idea.
Well, our prediction came true. We are in the inner sanctum at CVPH Medical Center with our friend Stevens Mundy. How are you, Stevens?
I'm doing great, Gordy. How are you today?
I'm great, too. It takes me back 2 steps when I see somebody that's got printed talking points on there. I mean, come on.
Well, this is just your accomplishments in life, Gordy. They gave me.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You know, this facility where we're sitting now has a rich history, but Champlain Valley Hospital, and I mentioned with Michael when we started this interview, a lot of people don't know that history goes back way back into the early 20th century.
It's really interesting that recently we celebrated the 100th anniversary of the founding of Champlain Valley Hospital, and the work that the sisters did and others did in this community in establishing this has developed into just a tremendous medical center today.
Were you surprised after you came here to find that there was such a rich history in this community with these 2 facilities?
Very much so. And if you drive by and look at the first facility, because it still stands there, it's now kind of an apartment house where they started caring for the first patients here. And I go back and I think about what was life like here without a medical center. What was life like once they started it, and what kind of conditions were they dealing with, and what kind of equipment and staff and training, et cetera, did they have to deal with those conditions?
We're so much removed from that era that it's hard for us to believe that hospitals opened here before they had bona fide ambulance services. Most babies were born at home. People didn't go to the hospital unless their appendix had ruptured or they had a leg to cut off. I mean, right. It was a far different time.
No, it was. And even if you go back in the 40s and 50s, and I've talked to people who were in nursing here in the early 50s, and they described gloves for surgery that they washed in between surgeries, and there was one nurse who was telling me about a kind of a rubber adhesive product that they used to patch the gloves.
Isn't that amazing?
And today, we've got to have 50 different kinds of gloves and sizes, and hypoallergenic, non-allergenic, all these different powder, latex, etc., non-latex.
Since I arrived here back in the early 1960s, I've interviewed so many people who graduated from the nursing schools here in this community. Calvin and I had the great pleasure of talking to a couple of ladies who were very close to 100 years of age, and their memories as young girls coming to this town by train, staying in the facilities to study nursing, and their distinguished careers. And those people worked for decades and decades.
They absolutely did. They worked for a number of decades in their careers. And the personal nature of what they did was just amazing. I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing some of your interviews and talking to some of the people.
You had to be a quick study when you came here to learn about the history of this facility and others. But I know you and I have talked about this before. And we mentioned it earlier. So I'm not just patronizing you with the microphone in front of your face. You like this community, and your wife likes this community, and
Absolutely.
you have been assimilated into it and have returned the favor. You like it up here.
We love it here, and my wife's the executive or the president of the board of the Cultural Center, and last Saturday you would have found me sanding and painting walls inside the Strand.
Don't you love it?
I do. It's a great thing. But it's interesting to look at the. You talk about a quick study for the CV hospital. We're still finding things out. I mean, even the people here today, we were told there were some stained glass over at the Feinberg Library from the original CV hospital chapel. We were building a new chapel, which we opened yesterday here. And we approached the college we were told there were 2 pieces over there, and could we get them here? Come to find out, there's lots of stained glass that they have in storage, and it's the college's property because they purchased the old hospital building.
True.
And
yeah.
they're doing a very long-term, past when you and I will be on this earth. I think it's a 100-year loan or something like that.
Well, I'll be out of here.
Well, neither one. I don't care what modern medicine brings. I'm not sure either one of us will be here in 100 years. But, we're bringing that history back into the medical center. There's already 1 piece in there, and there'll be a couple more brought in over the next several weeks. And there's a picture in the chapel of the old chapel at CV Hospital. And we're still uncovering these bits of history today.
And first of all, I did not know that stained glass was over there. As many times as Calvin and I have carried the cameras into the special collections for other reasons, there are a lot of nooks and crannies, as my mother used to say.
Well, and some of it was on display. 2 pieces were on display right as you went in the Feinberg Library. But then there was a number of other pieces from the chapel that they had in storage that were, dirty, not deteriorated, but just dirty. So our staff is cleaning them. They're building a wooden encasement for them and putting them up in the chapel, and it's really a breathtaking new location.
Isn't that great? And you talked about archives, and Michael and I and Calvin and I and many other people have talked about how these private archives survive. People will watch this program, and they'll say, hey, we got a picture of what my grandmother was over there in 1950. We got people have given me hospital bills when they had a baby in the hospital or had their appendix out from 1931 or 1935. Right. That's hilarious.
Well, you look at Mike found someone gave Mike the midnight census from when the 2 hospitals merged.
72.
Yeah, and it's not only got who was in the hospital and what room they were in. It's got how much they paid.
Isn't that great? Oh, what a wonderful thing to have.
You know, and it's an interesting thing. But if you kind of put out 50 different artifacts, the thing that always draws people to look at are what the people are doing in those artifacts. You know, the pictures. They look and they're intrigued by a piece of equipment and you know what that equipment was like today versus yesterday. But they're always drawn to the people, and so I think that's the one constant in all this is that, you know, you had courageous people that started these facilities. You have wonderful people who've worked in them, and that continues today. It's really about people helping people, neighbor helping neighbor. You know, the reality is that it's a very small community, and people treat the patients in here like they are family.
We've talked often about quality of life, the cohesiveness of this community, the willingness of, as you and your wife have discovered at the Strand and other places, people will go the extra mile to help somebody else. And this is something that we've all enjoyed over so many years here, and this is true of the medical center. How many times have we called this your hospital, right, on camera, so that people take ownership?
That's right. This is the community's hospital.
Certainly true of the Champlain Valley Hospital. Since I told people we were coming over here today, everybody has got an anecdote about somebody who went there. My wife worked at the switchboard, and somebody did this, and somebody did that, and it all paints a picture.
Yeah, the community support. I tell people a lot of times, everybody I meet has an opinion, and most people like things that we've done, and they also have things they'd like to see us do differently. That's just the realities of life. But to a T, every single person wants us to succeed and be better tomorrow than we are today. And that's the support that you get in this community.
Yeah, and you and all of us would like to hear more of these stories because, you know, this history is being written. As you said, new things are being found all the time. I learned that my late father-in-law was a maintenance man over at Champlain Valley Hospital, built a lot of the storage cabinets and who knows what there for many years. He might
have worked on the stained glass that we found.
He very well could have, but he's not with us anymore, so we'll have to rely on another kind of message.
That's right. That's right.
What else would you like to talk about this great history?
You know, I think the other thing is the influence of the Sisters of the Great Nun.
Absolutely.
These women of the church were so dedicated to a calling that they came here and wanted to found a church, or excuse me, a hospital. And they went door to door. You know, if you look at some of the things, they went door to door with community members raising money over several years and developing the hospital. And as I fast forward to today, and you look throughout the medical center, it's a much more diverse medical center. There are men and women. You know, if you go back in that time, I would venture to say that 100% of the nurses were women.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
And 100% of the doctors were men. And today, it's a very strong mix of men and women in both professions, and really all professions here. And we were really pleased yesterday with the opening of the new chapel to recognize Father Reamer, who's been here for many years.
He's a dear friend. We were both born in Pearl River, New York, so we have something in common.
He's a great man.
Isn't he great?
The Catholic Church has supported his position here for many years and continues to, and we're very grateful for that. And we also introduced our new interfaith chaplain, Chaplain Dewar, and a wonderful young lady who's come out of the Princeton Theological Program, which is a great asset to us. And the combination of her training and and Father Reamer's training and his vast experience here really continues on the spiritual nature of what the sisters started here.
I've often told him, you know, he's a very humble guy, but I recognize how hard that job is. So do you. You watch him go into a room and you say, how can a man do it time after time to bring a little solace to people who are so ill?
Well, I came here from a Catholic hospital, and that's one of the things that drew me here was having a strong ministers program. and Father Reamer is outstanding with that. And it's near and dear to not only our hearts and our culture here, but to our patients.
It's a package. You know, as I said before, it's a community medical center now. And when we can trace these roots and, you know, fill in the different corners of the canvas with all the different colors that were there since Michael said the concept dates back to 1903, did you say, Michael, somewhere in that? You know, and,
it took them a while to get going.
Yeah, well, of course it would. Imagine how long it takes from some of the fundraising we try to do here.
Right, that's right. You know, we're just very grateful that people are interested in hearing about the history, and you know, I think you learn from history, and shame on us if we don't learn from history. And
you've just said a mouthful. Shame on us if we don't, because we'll have no idea.
We'll repeat it again, our mistakes, and we won't learn the things that we've done well as in addition.
You know, I don't mind patting Calvin on the back for the yeoman's job he's done since the early '80s with that camera on his shoulder or that tripod, and that's been our theme to capture these moments in history and to expand on them to a point where they become those archives that you mentioned a while ago. And 10 years from now, you'll be seeing this program and they'll say, no kidding, they opened that chapel?
And Mike and I talk about this a lot. We're constantly amazed that one of your programs has run on a Saturday morning or a Friday night or 2 in the morning, and somebody watches it and it's from 10 years ago, and somebody will come up to us and say, did you really just do that? And we're taken aback because it was so long ago, but then we say, you must have seen this on TV.
Isn't that a riot? And of course, we've interviewed, Calvin and I take a deep breath when we try to recount the number of people who are now deceased that have been part of our program. And when of course...
Well, there are a lot of us that still live in Gordy, too.
Oh, yeah, there are a couple of us that are still hitting the floor in the morning.
Thanks to CPPH.
That's right.
Yeah, that too.
That's right.
But isn't it great to have, you know, and why not give a little shot to the man with the camera and Hometown Cable, because it's nice to have this.
It is. And I think you're right. It is the modern day archives of our community.
Well, it has pleased us to do. I have no idea how many programs Calvin and I were commiserating, and the young man that sits right over there said, I don't know how many times we've talked, Gordy. I have no idea since he first came here on a radio microphone and on a television microphone. But the story still has chapters yet to be told.
That's right.
What else is on the list there?
You know, no, I think we've covered it. Yeah.
On purpose or inadvertently, huh?
That's right.
But it's great to be where we are today. And as we go back and trace the history of CVPH and Champlain Valley Hospital, we're pleased. I'm kind of glad we weren't here with some of the struggle, because it's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's not easy in this day and age. It's hard to attract good surgeons and doctors and staff for a medical center.
Yeah, it's everything that is tough.
Especially in the last 3 or 4 years.
But you know, with various problems come opportunities as well. And right now our country, our world, and our community are going through a recession. And, there's lots of problems with that. One of the bright spots in that is that the people who look to the medical center as an organization with stability and future and, a career development are being attracted to us. And the quality of the people that are applying here is even better. We were just reviewing a very senior position here and have outstanding candidates, and with really good reasons to want to come to the North Country in Plattsburgh.
Isn't it great? Sometimes we fail to see what wonderful resources we have all around this community, educational resources.
Right.
You mentioned the religious aspect. All those things that fill in that quality of life that we've mentioned. Maybe we should show some of our programs to some of your candidates.
That's right. Well, I would bet that some of them, they do a lot of research online, and they find these things. They look at this.
It's great that it's available, and I'll mention that now at this time in our program, because this will become an important archive. that most of our programs can be viewed not only on the local cable systems, but on the internet at Plattsburgh.com and HometownCableNetwork.com. Hopefully they'll be there forever and people can just pick one they like. And you said some of the older shows that Calvin has done even before I began this program with him are, I guess you would call them classics now. On YouTube, they'd have millions of views if they knew about it.
Right.
I want to thank you personally for coming to this community. I talk about you when you're not here, and I talk to you when you're here, and I compliment you for discovering us. And I hope your tenure here is very, very long.
It's very mutual, so thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks so much, Stevens.
Good to see you today. Thanks, Calvin.
Jim Morgan, so great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
I hadn't realized that you've been associated with this place since where was I in 1959? I was just trying to remember. Probably in college somewhere down on Long Island. 1959.
58.
58?
Yeah.
No, don't take a year away from the guy. Another guy with notes. Can you believe this?
I wasn't sure what you were going to ask,
Well,
so
I'm
I
not
brought
gonna,
a few notes.
I'm going to just let you tell me everything you can remember. What happened with you in 1958? What was your contact?
I had just finished my schooling in the X-ray school, and I had to do a year of internship. And so Dr. Robert Buren took me on as his
did he really?
intern.
I'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah. And
we
then
see him every now and again.
Yeah. So, yes, I worked with Dr. Buren for a good many years. Good many years.
You know, it's so funny, and this is just an aside. There's a rodeo group of doctors, retired old doctors eat out.
Yeah.
And we have had so much fun with them on camera and off camera at various locations. Boy, talk about people with memories, these great doctors.
Yeah.
So you started out doing
the internship, and then after that, the hospital took me on as an employee. And I made a big hourly salary of $1.20 an hour.
$1.20, wow!
$1.20 an hour. But I was well paid because the orderlies at that time were getting 90 cents an hour and the nurses' aides were getting 56. So I was well paid.
Isn't it funny? By today's standard, that's almost ludicrous. My mother used to tell me she made 42 cents an hour in the laundry when I was a little kid.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. So don't dirty your clothes so much. So then what?
Well, then the old hospital, of course, that's where I started out over there. Sister Mary Bernadette was the...
oh my goodness, there's a name. Wow.
She was
blast from the past.
Administrator.
I'm so glad
at
we
that
came
time.
here to see you, James.
Yeah, and she was a great lady. One of the things that I remembered, there was no controller at the time. In fact, Clyde Lewis was the first controller at the Champlain Valley Hospital.
No kidding.
Yeah, and there was no controller. And there was no purchasing department. We actually ordered our own supplies out of the catalogs from the vendors. And then when the invoices came in, you checked them to make sure that they were accurate. You signed off on them. And then down in the business office, there was a shoebox. And you threw your
proverbial shoebox.
Yeah, and you threw your invoice in there. Then Catherine Stone wrote the checks. So that's how.
Those are talk about memories.
Yeah, that was. Of course, there was no computers or anything like that.
Are you kidding me? That's incredible. Yeah. In a shoebox. I won't forget that one.
The other thing I remember, of course, there were two cafeterias, one for the professional people and one for the non-professional people. The non-professional and professional could not eat together. They were separated. So
unlike today, where we all go in at the same.
But none of us minded because the meals were free.
I read that in one of the. Come on.
Yeah,
anybody go in, get whatever you wanted.
Whatever you wanted, and it was free. So that.
I'm glad they didn't have to take it out of your wages, Jim. Yeah.
So, and then of course at the hospital you don't see these anymore, but they had an old men's ward and a women's ward. which there was bed after bed after bed. And of course, there's no wards anymore today, but that was something.
Yeah, I'd forgotten the wards. My goodness, of course.
The other thing I remember is the Champlain Valley was the first in Plattsburgh to have dialysis. The first dialysis unit was in Plattsburgh at the old Champlain Valley.
What do you think?
It was when Henry Friedman came. I can't
tell
you
the
year, but it's when Henry Friedman came. And those units were huge.
Oh,
tiny.
I can imagine.
They were humongous units. I mean, they're little tiny things today, but they were humongous units. And they weren't that safe. You could really burn a person's blood in them. You had to be very, very careful, but that was something.
It's something we almost take for granted today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's a wonderful thing.
So you've seen lots of milestones. What else? This is getting really good, Jim.
Well, when I started out, of course, there was no CAT scan. There was no MRI. Nuclear medicine was in its infancy. Even ultrasound hadn't started. So, medicine was pretty crude in those days.
There was a lot of fly by the seat of your pants diagnoses back in those days, weren't there?
There was. There really was. I mean,
that just proves more the dedication and brilliance of some of the people, and the dedication of some of those nurses and early doctors.
Yeah. I remember, of course, there was no intercom system in the hospital.
Oh, there wasn't?
No. And Dr. A.B. de Grand Prix,
bless his memory.
Yeah, his ring was the switchboard. If they wanted him, they plugged into the third floor and they'd ring it 3 times, and that was his number.
Oh, the code system.
Yeah, and then if he didn't answer there, they'd get down to the 2nd floor, and his ring was 3 rings. And but that's how they got the physicians that they.
And you mentioned that, and I'm pretty sure my wife worked on the switchboard there, and I'm pretty sure that her father, the late Alfred Vaughn, worked on the maintenance crew back there.
Oh, yeah, he did.
That's my father-in-law. You remember him?
Why, of course.
Kay will be so pleased.
Al always brought his little Cocker Spaniel to work with him.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, he brought his...
Oh, you're touching home now, Jim. I knew you could do it.
He brought his little Cocker Spaniel. I mean, that dog came to work with him every day.
Isn't that?
He lived in Morrisonville.
And he certainly did, next to the little mini mart, which has changed hands so many times.
Yes.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
I used to go down there and see your father-in-law often.
Good people.
Yeah,
good stock.
We liked
oh, that's great. I'm so glad you remember that. What else?
When we started out, of course, there was no automatic film processors. Everything was hand processed.
Oh, my goodness,
and then,
yes.
Then when the automatic film processor came, boy, we had the world right by the tail.
Isn't that amazing?
And now there is no film. Now everything is digital. Digital. And that was just coming in here as I retired, so I never got to work with the digital.
No, come on. Because you retired in,
10 years ago. 10 years. Yeah, 2001.
Is that possible?
Yeah. So, there was no digital when I retired. They were just starting to get into it. Just starting, but it was, that's pretty modern technology.
Were you originally from this area?
No, I was originally from St. Lawrence County.
Where?
I was born in Potsdam.
Oh, my God.
I graduated from Hilverton High School.
Really?
Yeah, my dad pastored Hilverton. And
you know that my dad was a minister, and
Jim
remembered when we sat down that my dad put on a magic show at the Elizabeth Street Church.
That's right.
And I had forgotten that completely. Had to be early 60s.
Yeah, he put it was, and he put that on and then spoke to the youth. I mean, great speaker.
He was
great speaker.
He was the old fire and brimstone guy with hands that were big enough to. He used to tell me that he scared more hell out of people than a New York City taxi driver. Those are great memories.
Yeah, they are.
So you have outlived so many administrations, so many changes.
Yeah. I remember when the Grey Nuns no longer no longer served the hospital. Jerry Stewart was the first hospital administrator, lay hospital administrator. yeah. And then some of the board members I remember were Emmett Roach.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We might as well drop a few names, right?
Glenn Giltz.
Oh.
He was another one that was on the board. Jim Fitzpatrick was on the board.
Of course he
And
was.
those were guys that I remembered.
You know, stalwarts in our community. Talk
Yeah,
about their
yeah,
legacies.
yeah.
You know, their names are written on
Yeah.
buildings. I guess that's pretty good when you can get that. I don't know if you got your name on a building yet, Jim.
I don't think so,
You
not
should have
yet.
put your name on the MRI machine.
Faye is going to have the name on the building because she's the longest serving employee of 50 years.
No.
So she's the one that's going to have a building name.
I
after
think
her.
you should be reinstated just so you can run a little race. What else have you got on your list? What a guy you are, James.
Oh dear. Well, I was involved in the starting of the X-ray school in 1965.
Is that?
I don't know how much to enlarge on this, Mike.
We just
but,
want to. We love
in-
it. We love it.
In 1972,
I don't even have that much. I don't-
they wanted me to leave the school and they wanted me to go back in the department as department manager. Well, who's going to take the school? We're going to have Faye Ashline take the school. How's that going to go over? Don't know.
What year
But
was
anyway, they called Faye down and told her she was going to take the school. She cried and cried and cried. And a year later, I couldn't have bought the school from her for $1 million.
We're going to get her to confirm all this
Yeah.
in about 2 minutes.
She will confirm it.
Isn't
I promise
that
you she
amazing?
will confirm it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, the days there were wonderful. It was a very, very family-oriented place.
It wasn't a huge facility. I
No.
forgot how many beds they had at there.
100 some beds,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
At the
Faye
most.
spent some time over there too. Yeah,
And so
prior
you
to the
were
move.
right in the thick of it when my friend Al Walker and others
Yeah.
got into how many 7 ambulances and
Yeah,
loaded
yeah.
people
Oh,
for the
yeah.
transfer.
Back and forth.
That was
yeah.
a parade that this town will never see again,
Yeah,
hopefully.
That's right. Yeah, that was something. The merger of the 2 hospitals and then having the 1 facility. And now everything's torn down over there. The only thing that's left is the old nurses' residence. The original hospital was torn
Yeah.
down first, and then the addition was taken down later.
Nurses' residence, and I think they've got offices in there. I think we've been in there a few times for a couple interviews in the
Yeah.
old building.
Yeah.
It's a little nostalgia when you drive by there, you know,
Yeah.
because how many of us who've been around here for a long time have had relatives who
Right.
were there one way or another, who spent their last moments on this
Yeah,
earth,
that's right.
right there at
Yeah.
Champlain Valley Hospital.
That was an experience I'll never forget. Working there and working with the sisters, and after they left.
What do you got? I think you and Faye ought to collaborate on a book.
You know,
Some
we
of
had
these
talked about
stories
that
should
one time.
never be told, of course.
Yeah, if we could, there's actually a few of us that could sit down and put our heads together. Mary Ellen Neville, if you know the
Oh
word,
my
yeah.
goodness, come on.
Yeah, Mary
Oh,
Ellen
my,
has
my,
a
my.
wealth of knowledge. And,
Fortunately, people around this North Country have
Yeah.
good genes, and you know, some of the old nurses and doctors that are well up into their 80s
Yeah.
and 90s, you know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Dr. Kasperzak, who's
He's
still
well
coming.
in his 80s.
He's 89. He's still coming in
89. Isn't that something?
4 days a week. Can you
Yeah.
believe that?
Yeah, I worked with him, hunted and fished with him.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you mentioned A.B. de Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Thank God we did shows with him before he died.
Yeah, A.B. and his brother G.C. de Grand Prix, Gerard.
Just
he was
amazing.
on staff here. Yeah.
So what else? Anything else comes to mind right away, Jim? So we don't have to chase you in the parking lot today.
I think that pretty well
Just a
covers
quick-
it. One thing, I remember the first defibrillators. That,
Oh, do you really?
yeah,
What was
yeah.
that like?
Dr. Connick wanted to shock us just to try one out, and none of us went.
Come on! You decided no.
No, there were no takers
It's
on
like
that.
the people.
Gordy.
Yeah, hit me with a stun gun. I can take that. Oh my!
But I mean,
goodness.
it's just so interesting to see how medicine has changed.
Yeah.
The last visit, the last office visit that I had with Dean Wheeler, Dr. Wheeler, I said to Dr. Wheeler, I said, do you think in 50 years from now that people will laugh at the medicine? Do you think 50 years from now it'll be that crude like it was when we started out? He says, absolutely.
Oh, there's no question. It's changing faster now than it ever
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Star Trek is here. You
And
know,
I said,
think about it.
I said, where do you think you're going to see the biggest changes? He says, what they can do with genetics.
Yeah.
And that's what he said, what they
Yeah.
can do with genetics. Yeah.
You know, one of the most controversial topics in the world, but it's going to happen whether we like it or not, and how you can, how you can manipulate genes. Are you kidding? Isn't it nice to have lived through all of that, though, and to look at it?
Right, right. One of the things that we always laughed about, Dr. Buren had a stethoscope in a glass frame, and he had out an antiquated instrument. And of course, he used to go after Dr. Wheeler about that, you know. Of course, Dr. Wheeler would listen to your lungs, and if you heard anything, well, you got an antibiotic, and he treated the pneumonia. And of course, a radiologist, you got to have a chest X-ray to make sure you got pneumonia before you started the treatment. And they used to have fun with that. He called it the antiquated instrument.
How many X-rays do you think you've been exposed to in your?
Oh my goodness!
God, this guy's got an amazing constitution.
I don't know.
Poor AB and his all of his field work, you know. Look what it did to him over the long haul. But where would we be without X-rays?
Yeah, I remember, who was the radiologist before Dr. Buren, a röntgenologist there? His fingers,
There's that word again, the röntgenologist.
Yeah, his fingers were actually burned from using the old fluoroscopes.
Of course.
Dr. Rolson's fingers were burned.
Yeah, and if he came in for anything, we put lead gloves on his hands, you know, to protect them, because, of course, the radiation off those old machines were.
Yeah, far different from
my.
Far different.
Yeah. Yes,
Jim, you've outdone yourself today.
Well, I enjoyed my career very much. I tell people I was as happy the day as I retired as the day I began.
Isn't that
It
amazing?
was a wonderful experience.
You've left a legacy of all those people whose lives you've touched, all those students.
Yeah.
How many are now
Oh, my land.
more than 50 years old?
My brother was in the first class that I taught.
No, come on.
My brother.
What's
Yeah,
his name?
Claude Morgan.
Is he still with us?
No, he's retired. He worked in the heart cath lab
Oh,
for
he
a
did?
number of years, but
Claude.
Claude is retired. But he
I
was
don't
in the
guess
first
I-
class.
No.
Yeah, I
Is
just
it?
saw, she's got a thing over there that says classes 1 through 11. If you were to go into 1, why, his folder should be in there.
Is it?
Yeah, oh, they're all there.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
Jim.
something, yeah.
You are the best, you know.
Well,
that-
thank you.
I got to
Thank you.
shake your hand
All
for
right.
all the golden memories,
Okay.
part of my life and a lot of others. Thanks again, Jim.
All right, you bet.
Bye.
Okay.
Faye Ashline, my dear friend, how are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
It's only appropriate. We got off the elevator and Mike Hillebrand says, I hear her voice. I know she's up here. And I said, you'll see her. We opened the door, and there you were teaching another class.
Another
how
class.
many?
Oh, this is either 38 or 39.
But who counts, right?
I went into the school in 72, so whatever that is.
You know, sometimes I hate to date people, but that's what we're here for today. And when I saw the list of employees and former employees, and you've been here longer than anybody, you're right on the top of the list, so sometime late this fall.
October 12th will be the end of my 50th year. And I have had a lot of people say, Faye, you're not that old, you can't be 50 years. However, when I came here, the Saranac Lake School Guild X-ray school only was 3 months. It's so different than the 2 years you spend now. And we went for 3 years of bookwork, and then we would be taken in by a hospital as a paid person, and you would do like an internship, but you were doing it as an employee, and at the end of like 12 months you would just continue on as an employee. So you really started being paid just as if you were working from day
Now
one.
they don't hire 7-year-olds anymore, you know.
So I really, came at 18 years old, and so it's like...
Where did you live? Did you live?
I've always lived in Line Mountain.
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
There's the strong stock.
Yeah, we built a new home, actually right in the center of Line Mountain. There was a huge lot next door to my parents, and we tore the house down and took everything away and built a brand new house, in-ground pool, took our garage, a beautiful place. And they put in after that, new water, new sewer. I mean, I have a beautiful place that's very quiet and private.
Talk about a rich history
Yeah,
of Champlain Valley Hospital, Physicians Hospital,
Yeah.
CVPH, Lion Mountain's a whole nother. We'll do that. We'll do that show another time. Okay, so what was it like that first couple of years?
When I came here, I was at Physicians. That was what my job. But after I started out just as a regular technologist, it was very quickly the assistant chief technologist. So that's why the story that Jim Morgan was telling was I was assistant chief and liking the all of the work and the busyness, and like in the morning I would do radiation therapy, in the afternoon I'd end up doing nuclear medicine, and I was doing, the director did not like any management. He didn't like doing paperwork or schedules or budgets, so I did all that.
Should be here now, shouldn't he be?
Yeah, and he liked checking films and being out in the department, so I got all my background that way. And over the years, I studied more, took the American registries in these areas. So I kind of had a little bit of everything, and I liked it. And so when Jim went in to be department director, I ended up, Dr. Kerner, bless his heart, he's passed away, but he called me in and said, you're going into the school for Jim Morgan. And I said, no, I'm not. No. I said,
so that was a true story.
I like what I do. And he said, you are. And in those days, I mean, you did what you were told. There was no, nobody to go to, no, rules, regulations type of thing. So
did you really shut it to
the next day I said, I don't want to go into the school. And he said, you are.
Please, Mr. Custer, I don't want to go.
So by the third day I was in the school and I'm going, I've never had a physics class. What do I do now? I've never had anything but 3 months. So I can tell you I studied a lot in the first 5 years. And
you've studied a lot since then. Managed
to get through it. But it was like in '67, we were doing all this stuff before I ever went into the school, and they merged on paper. And so that's when I ended up going to Champlain Valley for 3 months, twice. The chief technologist or director of the department went over for 3 months, and then I went, then he went, then I went for a year. And the goal was, there was a lot of worry about Champlain Valley employees not wanting to come over with Physicians Hospital, losing their seniority, losing their friendships, didn't want to give up their hospital, and I understood. I didn't blame them. It was a very well-run, quiet. Patients really were happy there, and so it was going to be very traumatic. And they thought by meshing some of the employees or management team that it would be easier, and they were right. And Jim had run both the school and the department, so he just went into straight school, and then we kept turns going over and working in that department.
I never thought of it that way.
Uh-huh.
But what a great idea
that
was, and very far-sighted at the time.
It was very far-sighted.
Because the two facilities were a little bit competitive in some ways.
They were. And it's amazing how many doctors worked at both.
Yes.
And then there are some that only wanted to go to one or the other. But it was an experience that meshed a lot of employees. And that's where, like I said, you'd go by the switchboard and say, can you watch this for 5 minutes? I'd like to, go to lunch or whatever, and you'd end up sitting at the switchboard or answering the phone.
I'll have to ask my wife if she ever asked you to sit down over there, Faye.
I know.
I don't even know what year she worked there, but we found out from Jim that he remembers my father-in-law. My wife's father worked in maintenance over there.
Really?
Isn't that amazing?
I probably met him.
Oh.
Roger Brown was over there at one of the times I was there. And the cafeteria people were wonderful. They had this, they just come in, you'd have 3-4 choices and picked whatever you want, went and got a nice screen. It was free, and we just, sat down and ate, and it's there that I actually learned nuclear medicine. They had a dot matrix scanner, one of the old fashions that took 2 hours to do a scan, and I did the therapy, and then I do some dot matrix scanning, and that's how I started having an interest in nuclear medicine.
People have no idea what you're talking about.
Explain what it's a nuclear medicine scan where you give a patient some small trace of radioactive material, and you collect it back, And this was an electrical impulse, and the machine would go over the patient and make dots on a piece of paper. And then it would move and
Think
go
about
make
it.
dots back, and until an image was formed. And it took about 2 hours.
And that was cutting edge
It was
technology.
cutting edge. And then it was like probably maybe 5 or 6 years later that we bought our first gamma camera in nuclear medicine, and we were one of the first 4 in the state of New York to buy it. Didn't
Really?
even have a manual.
I did not know
No,
that.
went to Montreal to learn how to use it, and they'd give you some fuses and a screwdriver, and you kept it going.
Yes. Oh, that's the best line of the day.
Oh, yes.
Some fuses and a screwdriver, and you kept it going.
And
Okay,
our
you're a caution.
equipment, KV selectors to change your KV. If they broke, you took a coat hanger, cut some pieces, filed it down, you put it inside, and you had a new hook. You had a new pin for your selector.
Now
We didn't have service people or anything like that.
I said fly by the seat of your pants,
Oh yeah,
and I wasn't
yeah.
kidding,
Oh
was
no.
I?
And in '65, they brought in the first automatic processor, and we didn't have a repairman for that person either. For the processor, I stayed all weekend while they put it in, and they showed me everything I needed to know to change the tubing, the fuses, and left you some spares of everything, and then they went on their way. And unless you had something serious, you did your own repairs, your own fuse changes. And there was one person that came from Governor if we really got into trouble. But I saw that
I was a long
processor.
ride on horseback.
I know, and I saw that processor put in, and we didn't have to hand process anymore, which was huge. And then I watched them come out. We have no more processors, so it went full circle. We have
A lot
no
of things
processors.
are going around four circles,
Yep.
around in the circle, and then the circle expands, and
We had
New
one
stuff?
processor left, and they took it out last week. We were using it for state chest X-rays,
no
and that's
kidding.
gone. We had 5 of them. Yeah. So that was another interesting part.
You've seen so many things come and go,
Mm-hmm.
so many people come and go.
Oh,
Did you
yes.
ever dream, as an 18-year-old,
That I would be here today?
that
No.
you would hang around? 18-year-olds start work today, not just in the hospital business, but anywhere. And I'm not decrying what they want to do, but some young people walk in and want to say, when's my first vacation, and how many days off do I get, and
They change jobs often too.
change jobs
yeah,
often.
They do.
In those days, I think that's a good point to make. When you got a job,
Yeah.
you thought maybe you'd stay there for a
You
while.
stayed there, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of long-term employees at CVPH. And this afternoon we had the retirement party for David Kronk, over
No
40
kidding.
years.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
And so there are a
we
lot
saw
of...
his name on the list
Yes,
too.
and there are a lot of long-term people. It's been a good place to work. I mean, good benefits. It's the biggest employer in the county, and I have had a good career here.
And it pleases you to see the kind of growth that you've made.
Oh, I do. I love seeing the new technology, the open heart, and our new equipment in radiology. I just helped put in the new MRI unit, and I mean, it's just all new technology. It's faster, it's more efficient, better detail. There's all of the good things for patients here.
People who are watching this program may have come up here, or may have seen somewhere that crane dropping that big, huge piece of equipment into play. It's not something 3 strong guys can carry down the hall
Oh no!
anymore,
No, no, that took a crane, and those are heavy. And the higher the Tesla or the magnetic field, the heavier the units are, because you have more equipment, and they're more dense, bigger magnets, and it is amazing what happens.
Over the years, you have accumulated a wealth of information, enough for about 15 college degrees, and you've done a lot of this studying on your own, but then you had to be licensed for a lot of things. Name some of these things that you've
Well,
done.
everyone like the students I graduate, have to go and take an exam, an American Registry of Radiologic Technologist certification. It is also a New York State exam. You pay to the New York State to apply to take the same exam, and you pay to the registry. You get your results back separate from each, but they have made an agreement to give one exam. And so you start off with your basic core radiographer, which is what we do, and then after that, every specialty you get into, you can go back and take another examination and become certified in that field. And so, like, you know, once a year I end up renewing mammography, nuclear medicine, radiography, state licenses, and there's a requirement of 24 continuing education credits that every technologist has to do in order to get them back. So if you don't do your continuing ed, you lose them, and you would have to go back to school and take a new exam. So it is quite complicated as far as staying up on things.
Every 2 years you got to throw the books out and grab some new books.
You do. You have to start over for your 24 credits.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But you know, there is a good side. There are a lot of good sides, and you've mentioned many of them.
Oh.
Friends you've met and things you've done. But you've stayed in the same field from the very beginning, right?
I have, but I've done more than one thing. See,
Oh,
I
gosh.
like the different areas rather than just do X-ray or just do nuclear medicine. I've been very lucky to do more. Now they're getting very specialized. If you do therapy, you do therapy. If you do nuke med, that's all you're doing. And I was very fortunate to be able to do them all. And today it would be, you know, you'd have to go 2 years or 1 year additional for each one of those specialties. So you could spend a lot of time going to college before you ever worked.
There weren't many gray nuns left over there when you started.
There
when
was
you went over
only
there.
several. There was like a handful
Yes.
that I met. But I grew up with the nuns in Line Mountain, but they have the you know, sodality and nurses, the nuns. Trying to remember which. Oh, they're not the gray nuns. They were Franciscan nuns. So I started at a very young age with exposure to the nuns or the sisters, and so I got to know them at Champlain Valley.
So what gave you that first spark when you were 18 years, before you were 18 years old?
Well, it was interesting. I had a 5-year scholarship to college to be a librarian, which I had been given. Okay, and
Isn't that amazing?
a steady boyfriend of 5 years from like my first year in high
now
school.
we're getting into the nitty gritty here.
Yes, and he was going in the Air Force, and I couldn't think of 5 years of college. I just couldn't think of it. I couldn't put myself there as a librarian. So I saw this advertisement about radiology school, 1-year program in Saranac Lake, and so I decided that's what I was going to do. Had no idea what I was getting into. My parents and the teachers at school were upset because I didn't take the 5-year college, and I went there for 1 year, and the rest is history.
Isn't that?
That's how I did it. I had no idea.
And what a
Just saw an
wonderful,
advertisement, and it was a 1-year program.
tremendous history. And you say the rest is history. That's why we're here today.
Yeah.
And you filled in a lot of the blanks.
I like, along with the school, my real love is the Women's Imaging Center.
Let's talk about it.
Back
Of course,
in the
I'm sorry to
70s,
have forgotten.
back in the 70s, when they decided to do mammography, we started it here by taking the filter out of the X-ray tube in a regular room.
Come on.
And we did our mammograms on industrial film. And then we would do one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and we opened the window and put the tube head out towards the window
cannot believe
to
that.
cool it off.
Isn't this
So we
beautiful?
could do a second patient in the afternoon. That's how mammography started.
So talk about, you were right on the edge of it back then.
First patient, I said, how do we do this? You take the filter out, and here's your industrial film, try it. And that's how mammo started. And from there, we went to the suction devices, a regular suction machine hooked to a black bag, and you would take the air out, and inside would be film. And then in probably late 70s, we purchased the first dedicated GE mammo unit. And we had that for like 10 years or more. And then Dr. DeLeese and Dr. Kerner knew the Wendy Logan Clinic in Rochester. And we went down several times, and they had started all this, doing the shawls and catering to women to get them to come in and have their mammogram. And so that's when we designed and started the first one in 407 of the medical office building here, which is our health office now. And we designed and started our first little mammal center, and it was half owned by CPI and half owned by associates in radiology.
Yeah.
And went several years before they ended up selling back to the hospital, and then we went on to build the one at the plaza. And that is actually 12 years old now. And it was like yesterday that we built and moved
possible?
in there. It is.
Wow.
Oh,
That
yes.
was your baby in the
Yeah.
very beginning.
Yeah. We've come a long way, digital mammography, everything. And we're now getting ready to start doing some high-risk assessment. Like before the patient ever gets to the radiologist, they'll know if they have the high risk, the densities, and they will know whether or not to recommend genetic counseling or BRAC testing, or whether or not they need an MRI, a breast MRI, which they do at Valcor Imaging. So that's the next step, is to get that done this year.
Think about this. About how many thousands of lives you might have saved just with your personal diligence and teaching and effort over the years, Faye. And that's, for me, that's a bottom line. That's something nobody can take away from you. I mean, you're only going to work 13 or 14 more years.
No, I don't think so. However, it's a team. You know, it's like no one in X-ray ever really individually, saves a life. You're doing a test that's going to help another part of the
What
team.
a team. What
Yes,
a
it
team.
is. It's teamwork.
What an
It
amazing
takes
team.
an X-ray and then the lab report and, a physician and a nurse. And it is teamwork. It is teamwork at its best. And I try to teach that to the students, that you're not alone out there. And you're not the saver of everything. You're part of the whole big picture.
Proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is good. And you were teaching your 38th or 39th class
I
today
was.
when we walked in. And they were listening too.
Oh yeah, they're anxious for their registry.
Are they?
They want good grades,
They're all going
and
to pass.
they don't miss a day. They're here at 10 to 8. Every day brings different person brings breakfast. And
That's good.
Today we had blueberry muffins.
I like that.
It was cinnamon buns, and they have their juice, and they get set by 8 o'clock, and they're ready to go. And no one ever comes late or ever not comes. It's very interesting.
You are an amazing and wonderful lady, and I'm proud to call you friend.
Well, I thank you.
I want to personally thank you for all those years, 5 decades of perseverance and dedication.
Yeah.
And people will remember you. They'll be writing your name when they
Yeah.
screw up in that class, and they'll write Faye Asline 300 times.
Well, it's I had 2 maternity leaves. That was it. I have 2 children. But, again, it's teamwork. If my husband hadn't been at home, for the children to come home on the bus and have supper ready and, do all the running to the doctor's offices and the well baby clinics and, everyththing that he did allowed me to continue doing what I'm doing. Because it is a very busy place here, and lots of times, in the earlier days, I mean, now with the union and all the setup and the new regulations at CVPH and the policies, if they need to go somewhere for a child, they can easily do it. And I worked in the days when, no, you were told make it after hours, or
Amazing.
You were just told no.
Well, marriage is a
Yeah.
team
It
work,
is.
too.
I mean, I could not have done it without the support, of raising a family. Yeah.
Lots of friends and lots of good things.
Mhm.
Faye, thanks
Yeah.
so much for
Oh, you're
all
welcome.
you've done, for your wonderful stories.
You're welcome.
You've just written another chapter in the history of this wonderful facility. May you live long and healthy.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Faye.
Yeah.
We have moved into that beautiful new chapel area with a beautiful young woman. Marcy Cavanaugh, how are you?
I am just fine, thank
Well,
you.
we are so thrilled to be here with you. You were pacing the floor and promised to come and look at us, but we were tied up way upstairs trying to interview some people and having a great time. You go back, how far with these facilities in town, Marcy?
Well, I entered training at the old CV hospital in 1949 and 50. And it was then that I went into nurses training, and I was told by a friend that it was a really nice program, and
That'll do it.
so I thought that I said I can do that. So I talked it over with my parents, and they thought it was a wonderful idea. So that was the beginning.
Were you from this area?
Yeah, I was from Standish, New York, and
There
I
you
went
go.
to
See,
school
Lion
in Line Mountain.
Standish, isn't that great?
And Faye Ashline is from Line Mountain,
yes,
and other people that I guess we are tough and we
I
can
said,
survive.
talk about that good stock.
That's right.
For you, is it Scandinavian or what is your ancestry?
French.
French? Oh,
My
sure.
ancestors were from Canada. My grandfather was French. He had a big farm, and I used to go there and go to the chicken coops and get the eggs with my grandmother.
There it is.
Yeah,
That's what made her strong.
that's right.
So you got your nursing licensure what year?
1953.
That was a good year.
Mhm.
Probably
And,
the year I spoke first on the radio in Malone. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Oh, so what? Tell me about a few of your more poignant memories of the Champlain Valley Hospital, Marcia.
Well, that was my first time away from home. I was only 18, and but it was wonderful to meet. We had 35 girls that went in that year, and I met many wonderful people, and many of them were still friends. The Grey Nuns were just wonderful. They taught us very well. And when I graduated 3 years later, they asked me if I would take charge of the women's ward at CV. And I said, oh, sure. So the day after I graduated, I came to work and I was in charge of a floor. And I felt very comfortable because after 3 years under their tutorage, we felt very capable. And so that was the beginning of my nursing career. And I have worked ever since. I have never been without a job since 1953.
That's an amazing and wonderful story. Was there ever a question when you're 18 about wanting to stay in this area, or did you think maybe I'll work a year or two and get out of town?
Well, I wanted to go to Boston to work in the bigger hospitals, but then I met my husband, and that was the end of it. I was going to be
Isn't it?
staying here.
See, that's the way it goes. And what
That's
did he
right.
do for a living?
He was a New York State Trooper, and he was from Brooklyn. He was not familiar with this area at all. And he came to Malone in February, and he said he thought he was in Siberia.
That tough
And-
Brooklyn kid
Yeah.
found out what the North Country was all about. That's
But-
where the old barracks were. The old troopy
That's
barracks
right.
were in Malone.
Hmm.
We just had a memorial service for Rose Waddell, who worked in the Clinton Essex Franklin Library System, and her husband started as a
Wow.
trooper.
Yes, I
Oh.
knew them.
Did you really?
Yes.
Rose worked like you did forever and ever and ever in the library system. She made it to 97. Didn't you say your mom is still with us?
My mom is still with us. She's going to be 97 July 8th.
There, see? Standish stock.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. So tell me a few other things you remember about your career.
Well, we had a very well-rounded training. Every single thing you could think of, we were taught. Even basics of cooking.
No kidding.
Yes,
Isn't
and
that amazing?
we worked in the diet kitchen. We had a lot of diabetics even then, and it was a tough life for them because trying to figure out what they were going to be able to eat was so important. and we had to cook that food for them. And
See, I wouldn't even have thought of that until you just mentioned it.
and weigh it and make sure there were a certain number of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And so everyone went through the diet kitchen. And then we helped to warm the food and serve the trays during those years. And they had to have white napkins, and the hot food had to be hot and the cold food cold. And the toast had to be a golden brown.
Isn't it? Come on.
Absolutely.
You had your instructions, and the toast, I like my toast cold.
When Sister Mary Phillip was there, everything was like that.
Isn't that amazing? There were rules.
There were rules, and you did not vary from those rules. And the linen closet, you could almost cut your hand on the sharpness of the corners, because everything was folded to a T, and that was the way it should look when she walked in there.
We've seen the old photographs, and we could just picture it being that way. So it was almost like being in the armed services, wasn't it?
A little bit, but you know, when you think back on it, that wasn't a bad thing at all. And to this day, I still work by the principles that we were taught, because they're good things, and we know that now.
You know, that's very important that we brought that up here, you know, because there are some people have one image of the nuns, and other people who went to school with the nuns in Catholic schools might have a slightly different image. But those principles, you know, we look back at our parents as being kind of strict at some times, and
Yeah.
school teachers, principals being strict in those times, but those principles have stood by us.
They have. They have. And we still correspond with the Grey Nuns. I talk to them on the phone occasionally.
Do you really? Isn't that
Yes.
marvelous?
And we write back and forth, and we try to give them a good donation every year for they have a nursing home there. And you know, most of the sisters today their average age is in the 80s. So we still correspond.
Wouldn't that have been fun to have one or two of them here with us, dressed in full habit?
Well, Sister Pierrette Remillard will be coming home this summer, I believe. She has a sister in Peru.
Isn't that
And I think she's the youngest one left.
really?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a wealth of memories. What else did you get involved with over the years? How long did you stay over there?
I stayed there until the hospital closed and they merged.
Oh, you did?
And yes, I did. And then I came over here for a couple of weeks and worked in the intensive care unit here. And then I got a job offer to teach. So I thought I would like to do that. So I did that for 26 years.
Where?
At BOCES.
Oh, did you?
What was
really?
BOCES then? In the LPN program.
Isn't that wonderful?
And
See, didn't
I
even know
loved that. I enjoyed it. And I see many girls every day
Oh, yeah, of course
that
you did.
I had then.
So you started, you came over here in 72 or before they
About
moved?
71, 72. Yeah.
And then you
right.
started actually teaching up there at BOCES when?
In 71, as a
No
matter
kidding.
of fact. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you've influenced a few hundred lives in that respect.
Well, I hope so, and I see a lot of girls, and the thank yous, and
Isn't it great?
it's wonderful to hear somebody say thank you for being the way you were.
See, that's the complete spectrum. You stay in touch with the Grey Nuns, and your young students who may not be quite so young anymore stay in
Right.
touch with you.
Yes.
But isn't it gratifying?
It is. And you know, when you're teaching, you learn as much as the students
course.
do. And you learn a lot from them. And it's a partnership.
It is, yeah. We've talked about partnerships already today with Faye and others. So you taught there for?
I taught there until 1996.
I love it.
And in the meantime, I would work here as a per diem person, so I kept my skills up.
You just weren't going to cash it in at any given time, were you, Marcy?
Not any time soon.
Are you over here often now? What do you do over here now, just besides stop in and say hello?
Oh, I work here now. I still work here on maternity.
Do you really?
Yes,
What better
I do.
place to work?
So I'm bringing those little babies into the world, but I love working. We have a nice director, Maria Hayes, and she is making a lot of changes and doing a lot of things, and she's a very understanding, very nice person. So she called me yesterday, as a matter of fact, to work today, and I said, well, I can. I've got to meet Gordy Little tomorrow.
Yeah, big deal, right? Marcy, that's wonderful. We're going to chat some more, but we're going to take a little break.
Okay.
Calvin, in watching these interviews, always has a few extra questions that I might forget to ask Marcy, but it's important, I think, to understand, even though the Grey Nuns were the administrators over at Champlain Valley Hospital, you didn't have to be Catholic to be a patient there, nor did you even have to be Catholic to work there, did you?
Oh, no, you didn't. It was a non-sectarian hospital. And the only thing, when we were in training, no matter what religion you were, they wanted you to go to your own church, whatever it was, once a week.
Isn't that amazing?
On Sunday. But we had Mass there every morning, and most of us went at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, I'm trying to find, where is that coffee pot in my glasses? Isn't that amazing? So many of the doctors weren't Catholic. Many of the nurses weren't Catholic.
Absolutely.
The Grey Nuns were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say that they ruled with an iron hand, but what they said was the law.
That's right, and they expected you to follow the rules and regulations, and I think the doctors for the most part did, and I don't think anybody minded it. I don't think their rules were that tough. I mean, they have to follow the law in certain things, and
But Calvin mentioned an interesting point, and I wondered, if you were a Catholic family and you were going to have a baby, did the Catholic, would it have been the proper thing to do was to have your baby at CVPH? Was that often happen? Did that often happen? Was there that kind of rivalry between the...
Well, people often ask that question, and I tell them, I think a lot of people wanted to go to Champlain Valley Hospital because of the nuns. They felt that the nuns ran a very strict and good hospital, and they liked the idea of the nuns being there. They felt that everything was going to be done according to the way it should be.
Isn't that interesting? And we all remember the rivalry among the various schools that we attended, not only the parochial schools, but the public schools. And that was great, friendly rivalry. Mm-hmm. But there was an undercurrent of rivalry between these two facilities, and that's why I wanted to ask you, if were you nonplussed when you heard that this merger was going to take place? What was your personal reaction?
Well, the fear of the unknown, I guess, because when you worked in a place that long and with, pretty much the same people, you knew how things were going to be. But the unknown always poses a lot of questions. And but Physicians Hospital, we knew many of the nurses, and we had...
And the doctors worked back and forth.
They both worked in both places, and it never seemed to be anything that caused a whole lot of a problem at all.
I know the publicity surrounding the merger was pretty much positive back in those days, and I remember it well. And that is because I talked. Dr. Al Walker's a delightful friend of mine and almost a member of my family, and he talks about that day and
Yes.
bringing the ambulances. Were you involved in that?
Yes, I was, and it was wonderful. Everything went smooth, and there wasn't. I didn't ever hear anyone say a word, a negative word.
It was great how it took some planning.
Yes.
There are logistics involved when you're taking patients in. Was it 7 ambulances, or is that just in my head? How many different
I'm
ambulances?
not sure, but it probably
there were half a dozen
was.
or more ambulances that ferried people back and forth.
It was very well
The media
planned.
covered it extensively. I remember
Yeah.
the pictures of the old ambulances in the newspaper.
It was very well planned. Everything went like clockwork that day. And the patients were happy. They didn't seem to be, but they were seeing familiar faces too, which made them feel good about moving.
It's not like it's 20 miles away, you know.
No, not at
It's
all.
right across town.
There were 95 patients.
There were 90, that's right, 95 patients who made the transition over to this place. And here we are today in a world that you could only have dreamed about when you were 18 years old, Marcy.
Oh, you just never dream of so much happening over all those
It's
years.
great to live a good, long, healthy life because you can appreciate those changes over the long term. I mean, we see enough changes in talking with the other people we've interviewed today in the last 5 years or 10 years.
Yes,
When you're
that's
talking
true.
about going back in your case to the late 1940s and through the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
60s, and all those decades, where did they all go?
Oh, they went fast.
But it's amazing and terrific. You are a tremendous person to have that kind of dedication to humanity, to your fellow man and woman. And as I mentioned before when we started, it must be pleasing to you to be sitting here today saying, wow, look what's happened.
I know. It is. And it's wonderful to think that I can work a little bit and still be a part of everything. And the patients are still, in your mind, the most important thing. And you've got to have heart and you've got to have caring. And they know it when they see it.
I love it. In maternity, of all places, isn't that the best?
It is.
Marcy, I want to thank you so much for your long and varied career and your dedication to this place and to the old Champlain Valley Hospital. May it go on for a long, long, long time.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
It's nice to see you, Marcy. This has been so much fun today, Michael. And to wrap it up here in this beautiful new chapel is just the icing on the cake for me. Behind us, the stained glass that came from the original Champlain Valley Chapel. More stained glass was discovered, as we learned today from Stevens Monday, at the special collections in the Feinberg Library at the local university. Over on the wall is a picture of the original chapel. Somewhere in that picture is this stained glass, and there is more to come.
It's, you were talking, I think it was with Faye, about everything coming full circle. And, here we go. I mean, that is from the 1910 hospital. We're getting more from the 1910 Champlain Valley Hospital Chapel that will be here in this totally brand new, dedicated on June 29th of 2010 chapel. That again, it's strategically located. It's attractive. It's kind of homey. It has the right feel, I think, and it's in the right location. It's
Tell
right
people
across,
again on camera where it's located in the hospital.
It's on the second floor, right across from the hallway where the Fitzpatrick Cancer Center is. But the beauty of being on the second floor is when you think about who most likely needs the sanctuary, the time to think, the time to meditate, the time to pray, than perhaps people with the cancer center, with the intensive care unit, with surgery, with the emergency department, the cardiac catheterization laboratories. They're all right here on the second floor. It's very accessible to them, and yet it's private.
It's charming. It's beautiful. It's a moving spot, and I'm sure it will be, starting right now, important for an awful lot of people in the future here. And to think, and you were describing what it looked like before, saying almost aloud, how are they going to put it there? They had to knock a whole wall out here to put this in, right?
Oh, when we were talking about doing this, and I heard about it, I could not imagine how in the world it could ever happen.
Empty space over here.
Basically, but not that much space,
Yeah.
and we still needed access, obviously, to get to the stairwell to go down to the first floor. And what I wasn't aware of and couldn't visualize was that we did, in fact, take out a wall, opening up what had been a storage area, creating enough space. And again, I think it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to getting the additional stained glass in, which we should have up within the next 2 weeks. We had facilities fellows going over today to get it from Plattsburgh State. And it's very nice.
It'll be where the windows are.
Yes.
To our right-hand side. I want to mention what's on the wall behind you here, CVPH Chapel, built with the generous support from Art and Meg Spiegel and family, and the Interfaith Chapel, the auxiliary from CVPH. Auxiliaries who do an amazing job, don't they?
Oh, they do. And you know, again, the whole story is you started and you build.
Yeah.
And it's all about the people. I mean, we exist to help people, and we may have wonderful facilities and great technology, and that cutting edge stuff like the nuclear medicine machine that Pei was describing in the 60s.
I love it. That's so exciting.
But it's all people.
Yeah.
It's all the people that are providing the care, that are touching the people emotionally and physically. It's an interaction. And everyone, no matter what they're doing, they all contribute.
Yeah.
It's all part of the whole process, the CVPH family.
Faye called it teamwork, and it is a CVPH family. We are fortunate to have had those individuals whom we talked to today, and many more that aren't with us anymore, and some that we just don't know about, who were involved through the years. And here we are. And at the end of June, the last day of June 2010, talking about the last 100 years. I love it. This has been so much fun today, Michael. It's great to know you as a friend and also your hard work here. There's a lot to do in your capacity down there, but you're obviously doing it well, and I think you found a home here too.
Oh, we love it. I mean, I can't imagine being anywhere else, and in fact, you know, if everything works out, a few years in the future, maybe I'll retire from here.
We'll be saying, Michael, it's been almost 50 years.
That's right.
I don't know if they make a cane that strong. I hope we find out. Michael, thanks so much. Shake your hand, my friend. Thanks so much for leading us, not astray, but in places where we never could have got out of here if you hadn't showed us the stairs. I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Michael. We appreciate all of the comments that our viewers give us on this program. We're just watching a little duck walk down the outside the window. On this program through the years, comments and suggestions about new programs, we welcome those. We welcome your monetary contributions. If you'd like to send a generous check to Calvin, care of Hometown Cable on the Ridge Road, Champlain, that would be nice too. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.